There is really only a handful of stories that last this long and that are as culturally impactful as the works of Dragon Ball. When something is this popular for this long, with this much influence, there is a reason for it. Other works of fiction that have taken the planet by storm, such as Harry Potter, ultimately fall off after a while. Not many people really care about Fantastic Beasts. Game of Thrones has fallen to the side after only about a year. Star Wars fans have been struggling with the franchise since the late 90s and the prequel films. The list goes on. This is not the case for Dragon Ball, arguably the most important work of fiction in modern history just behind Lord of the Rings. I'll be the first to admit I'm a DBZ fanboy. That doesn't mean I'm blind to the many...
I can sense energy.
How the hell did you do that?
Many...
If I train in earnest for the next 4 months, my body should be capable of an enormous leap in strength.
Many flaws that this series has produced over its 30-some-odd years. There is criticism to be had, for sure, but some criticisms, even some of the more popular criticisms, I would argue are not legit and only exist in people's imaginations. I'll give what I think is the prime example right off the bat. DBZ is all about who is the strongest and someone pulling a power-up out of nowhere to win at the last minute. The only time that's ever actually been the case, where it was just as simple as Character 1 needed to be stronger than Character 2, was his fight with Frieza on Namek. Don't believe me? Keep watching as I break down why DBZ is better than you realize, why it is so important, and why even now it deserves respect. To fully understand this, several things need to be put into view to understand where this is all coming from, and we'll begin for the American audience with when DBZ came over to the States. The explosion of DBZ in the West came at a different time. It originally began to air in September of 1996, but it didn't really gain any traction until it came over to Toonami in late August 1998. They began with Z instead of the original Dragon Ball, which many people, myself included, feel this was a huge mistake, as it took a lot of the whole epic saga aspect of the show away, something we will be talking about shortly. During this time with Toonami in the 90s and early 2000s, there was no streaming. No watch whenever you wish type of online services. There was barely even an online. There was a set time in which you watch shows, and if you missed that time, you are out of luck. I don't think today's generation can even cope with the concept of, if you miss an episode of one of your favorite anime shows, you won't so much as have a picture, let alone a clip. All you'll have is other people telling you about it, and it's basically forever gone into a void until maybe you catch a rerun 6 months later. So with that, we will temporarily break away from the American folks' viewpoint, and instead talk about the story folks' viewpoint, the one that transcends cultural boundaries. Dragon Ball is not merely a story. It is an epic tale, a saga. The way it is to be consumed greatly differs from so many stories of today. I'm not saying this is positive or negative. Some sagas run way too long for their own good, and some 12-episode stories are masterpieces. But regardless of the actual quality, the way such stories are consumed is different. You don't watch or read a saga on the side. Take Lord of the Rings books. You don't really find many people who read all 3 novels and then utter them easily, it was okay. You don't see people who are into episode 600 of One Piece that say, I don't know if I enjoy it. No, if you are that far in, you are invested. And these stories always become a part of you, in one way or another. And considering the popularity of Dragon Ball over 30 years later, that's not a coincidence. In terms of story structure, I'm going to be bold and say Dragon Ball has some of the best around, depending on how you look at it. That's right, you heard me. I'm not saying, however, that it's the most solid. In fact, this epic tale has some of the flimsiest universes around. But in this case, such a thing is a feature, not a bug.
48 minutes. That's all we were given for this tournament of power. Yet in that brief time span, we Saiyan warriors have shattered our limits, time after time. You've seen it with your own eyes, Destroyer.
You begin the story following around Goku. He is some 12-year-old kid with a tail who knows nothing of the world around him. He just likes to fight. Along comes this funny-looking boy that seems to have no tail, who, after running him over and shooting him in the face, decides to take Goku along on her journey to collect the magical 7 Dragon Balls, which can grant any wish. As viewers, we are put into this world and know about as much about this mystical place as he does.
A bird! Wow!
And much like little Goku, We are at the same time insanely curious about this world, but don't really give a damn. We just want some action. So talking dinosaurs, human-animal hybrids that at some point just outright vanish, physics-breaking technology while still needing wires for headphones, the mysterious female and her lack of a pee-pee, all of these unexplained phenomena, we are able to just roll with it. This leaves the opportunity for anything to happen, and we get to see how Goku deals with, well, anything. And this idea of anything can happen is also brilliantly used against us, time and time and time again, which will be covered when we go along this story. It's also good to keep in mind that this manga of this little kid came out in the 80s. The main shonen protagonists were like this, with action scenes like this. Little Goku was not a unique, one-of-a-kind type of protagonist, but he certainly was uncommon during his era. Back then, Dragon Ball did not have any baggage of being called old and predictable. Quite the opposite, in fact. Speaking on that note, the show has a reputation of being too predictable and formulaic. This is really only true in one single aspect. The next villain is stronger than the last. But frankly, even that concept got broken in the Majin Buu saga, and barely existed in Super. But we'll get to those. Dragon Ball has this wonderful habit of every time we get comfortable with the idea of what it is, it breaks that mold. Goku's fight with Jackie Chan felt quite intense compared to anything we've witnessed up to that point. Mercenary Tao gave us our first feeling that the invincible Goku was in legit danger, and his meeting with Grandpa Gohan was quite touching to many.
Grandpa! Grandpa!
That's right. It's me, my boy. It's me.
I'm so happy to see you, Grandpa. I've missed you so much.
But the first major world-shaking example of this is when King Piccolo is revived, and he proceeds to kill Goku's best friend Krillin. Up until this point, the predictable mold was that this was a happy-go-lucky show about the many ways Goku was awesome. So when you were invested in that happy-go-lucky attitude, with the smiling childhood friends and all of the other good stuff, and suddenly someone comes along and snaps that expectation, it hits you hard.
Krillin! No, Krillin, I'm here! Wake up! Krillin! He's gone. He's gone.
I mean, hell, when I watched Dragon Ball, well after I've seen Dragon Ball Z, it still kinda hit me, and I knew he was gonna be okay too. That's how good it set up that moment. A story in which anything can happen, and yet it still manages to find a way to shock us. That is good storytelling, especially coming from the 1980s era, which, let's be honest, had a lot of stories that were not exactly deep.
She'll thaw out if you stick your finger up her ass.
What? You gotta be kidding! Oh well...
When stories have a dramatic change in tone like this, it's quite difficult to pull off, and in my viewing experience, doesn't really hold up well. If Rising of the Shield Hero turned into some romantic comedy, no one whose opinion matters would go for that. If Konosuba had a major character die and things became all somber and vengeful, it would feel really off, and I would not want that at all. I came for the shitty antics, I expect the shitty antics. Akira Toriyama, the author of this tale, keeps finding ways to make the sudden shift work. Suddenly this happy-go-lucky kid is out for blood, and his goofy little friends start dying, and it works. You feel the shift when it happens, and you want to know how this simple child is going to deal with such a situation. Again, how many shows can so well pull off the fight with this silly ninja
Now you have a tail, just like mine.
and this Demon King so well?
You'll pay for all the pain you've caused my friends.
He's quick.
Other stories tend to have a focus of a feeling or emotion they want you to have, and tend to break it up with some comedy or romance thrown in here or there to give us time to breathe. The original Dragon Ball is one of the very few shows that manages to hit both extreme ends so well, and it continues it on for many, many years. Now more than ever, you want to see this villain go down, and you cheer for Goku with all your might to be able to defeat him. Using this as a jumping off point, here is another aspect Dragon Ball got right 30 years ago that frankly most shows still can't seem to get. The protagonists tend to fall into one of two categories. They are either weak little pushovers that grow stronger by catching up to the world around them, or they are already awesome and amazing, and we see just how far they can push this awesomeness. Goku falls into the second category. He is awesome, and so we get to watch him doing awesome stuff. In the OG series, Goku usually did not come up against someone of his equal, but when he did, boy was it believable, and we were really invested in seeing how Goku could get out of this one. Watching Goku fight is always a treat, because he doesn't just outpunch his stronger opponents, despite what people think. Whether it's lying about how he's gonna use Junkin, or using a blast to propel himself forward to headbutt his enemy in mid-air, this idiot is always using clever tactics to beat his opponents. And this genius we see from Goku never goes
No, you wouldn't dare!
away.
Destructo Dish times 6!
Again, this way of fighting was actually uncommon back then. Dragon Ball didn't invent this way of showcasing combat, but they certainly helped evolve it. Before I go any further in what Dragon Ball gets right, I need to quickly do away with some misconceptions people have about this series to help avoid any "yeah, but" mental arguments some might be having. First and foremost, Dragon Ball is just all about Goku getting stronger in a new form and then crushing the enemy with his new power. As I stated earlier, that's never been the case. Quickly running down the list. Goku never had some mid-fight power-up transformation in all of Dragon Ball. Unless you count him turning into a monkey, which went, well, nowhere. Raditz required 2 people and Goku's death to beat. Vegeta required an entire team in which Goku was out of almost half the fight. Captain Ginyu was the light of random body-stealing shenanigans, which left Goku in the end looking like this. Frieza is the only case where a sudden transformation led to someone just straight up being better than the villain, and we'll get to that fight when we get to it. Cell, even though Gohan attained a new power that was foreshadowed since the beginning of Z, was in the end unable to do it alone, and required the power of friendship to finally get the final blow on Cell. Majin Buu gave a Super Saiyan 3, but that proved to not be able to beat him, and instead a Spirit Bomb powered by everyone in the universe, as well as the help of the Dragon Balls, was required. Super Saiyan God could not defeat Beerus. Golden Frieza fell on his own sword and required time to be rewound in order to save everyone. Goku going Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Kaioken times 10 was still not enough for him to defeat Hit, who was already holding back because of tournament rules. They outright lost against Zamasu and had to call upon God to just erase everything. And in the Tournament of Power, the perfected form of Ultra Instinct tripped at the finish line and required a 3-on-1 assault where 2 people sacrificed themselves in order to win. So again I ask you, at what point did Goku just need to attain a new form to win? So then, on to what DBZ ends up getting right. The first thing I will bring up is the way it constantly changes the landscape between every saga and manages to find a way to make things constantly feel fresh and new. At the same time, it also keeps finding ways to ingeniously find more enemies, stronger than last, for Goku to fight. And they never really feel shoehorned in, but flow out of this unexplored universe. The first saga feels like an adventure with unknown dangers of the outside world we know nothing about. Next, we have an arc dedicated to training under the Turtle School, going into the classic anime trope of the martial arts tournament, where Goku eventually loses to his disguised master, who at this point is set up as the strongest, and the ultimate goal that Goku must overcome. Next saga, being different from a straight-up adventure and tournament, we see Goku taking on an entire army. The real big bad that Goku has to worry about is Mercenary Tao, and we see Goku's first fight with him end with him being wrecked. Tao is able to be explained as to why someone may be stronger than Roshi exists without us knowing, as he lives in the shadows. He's also open to killing Goku, so even if he's not actually stronger than Roshi, Roshi still has to hold back on Goku so he doesn't kill him. So in that scenario, Tao would be a more formidable opponent because of that. Fortune Teller Baba gives us our first team-oriented climb the tower style fights, and gives us the final opponent, who can be explained as having a greater advantage than Roshi because he's both comparable in strength to him, and he knows Goku a lot better, giving him a huge advantage. That someone, of course, is Grandpa Gohan. Following that is the next martial arts tournament, and despite everything else being the same, the feel and stakes of this tournament are drastically different than the last. This time, with real bad blood flowing and amazing new techniques flying about. The master of the Crane School, a rival to the Turtle School, has been training a student for the sole purpose of defeating Master Roshi and his disciples once and for all. Goku is not just there to have fun like last time, and now we don't truly know the extent of this new foe's abilities. But we learn, and oh my god is it explosive.
What happened? Oh, where's the platform?
Following this, we yet again enter a whole new feeling with the resurrection of King Piccolo, and for the first time, the feeling of death looms in the air, as a saga about revenge and saving a conquered planet begins. Isn't it fun how we went from tournaments to saving the planet? Considering Goku seemingly lost due to luck against Tien in the last tournament, he's arguably already conquered his previous litmus tests with Roshi and Tien. But Dragon Ball does what it does best, and manages to find a new villain that still fits in this world of strong people. With that, the mold doesn't just shift, it breaks. Suddenly, Goku is no longer smiling, and the threat is now on Goku's life. He is able to win, but barely. The next saga combines the last two, with a tournament that has both bad blood flowing and the whole planet being at stake, with the son of the previous villain. We eventually have to fight what some call the transition from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z. The adventure aspect of the series had slowly been dying out, and this fight changed the landscape of how Dragon Ball fights go from this point forward. There's just something so intense about the happy-go-lucky main character getting a hole blasted through his chest. It's kind of funny, even though I know Goku is going to be okay, seeing him get blasted time and time again like this always leaves me with this feeling of dread, much more than when any other show does it. By the end, when Goku is finally crowned World Martial Arts Champion, we have been through over 150 episodes over the course of a few years of Goku's life. We, the audience, grow up with him. We see his struggles, his triumphs. After 2 failed attempts at being crowned champion, where both times he was just a second short, and having a hole blasted through him, he finally achieves his goal of being crowned the strongest.
The winner of the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament is Goku! All right! Fantastic!
It would have been nowhere near as emotionally satisfying if Goku won the tournament on his first try by episode 12, by defeating some random baddie whose backstory we got the episode before. No, after investing so much time and sharing so much emotion, we were not looking to just be entertained. We wanted Goku to freaking win. And boy is that a satisfying feeling that you really cannot get in today's shows, because putting in all that time is a lot to ask.
I guess this is the end. That stings.
But as we all know, that was not the end of Goku's journey. What came next was an anime that defined its generation.